Good evening, people. Welcome to another edition of the Bishop's Barbecue. There's no raisins in the potato salad, just truth served hot off the grill. Listen, I need for you right now to share, like, subscribe, tell a friend, tell somebody. Bishop is back on the air. I've got some special guests tonight. I've got an all-sister crew with me tonight, so you don't want to miss this. You want to share this with everybody in your circle. We're going to be talking about some things that are very important in this day and in this time with some sisters that are well able to talk about the subject matter that needs to be discussed on tonight. Listen, if you missed any of the previous Bishop's Barbecues, go right to our Facebook, go right to our YouTube page and check those videos out. You definitely want to go back and watch those. So listen, let me kick this off. Let me show you this video here, and then I want to show you this video, and then I want to kick it off by introducing these sisters to you on tonight, and then we're going to get right into our conversation. All right, we're having some technical difficulty with the video. We'll come right back with that. Okay, but let me introduce our first guest on tonight. Her name is Miss Karen Hunter. Many of you already know her as the talk show host of the Karen Hunter Show, but she's also a journalist and publisher, co-author of several books. Once again, the host of the Karen Hunter Show on Sirius XM. She is a important person in the conversation that we're having, especially in this particular day. She received a Pulitzer Prize as part of a group with the Daily News editorial board. She's a professor at Hunter College in the Department of Film and Media Studies, the CEO of her own publishing company, Karen Hunter Publishing, an imprint of Simon & Schuster, and a contributor to many cable news channels, CNN, MSNBC. You've seen her on all of that stuff. And so I want you to welcome in to the Bishop's Barbecue, to the cookout today, Miss Karen Hunter. Karen.
Hey, Bishop, I dressed for the occasion. Where's my hot dog?
Listen, there's steaks on the grill. We're going to serve them up real soon, very quickly. Just hold tight. It takes a while for them to cook. Our second guest is Dr. Keisha Blain. She's a PhD in history at Princeton University, a historian. She's got a broad interest and specializes in African-American history, the modern diaspora, and women's and gender studies. She's currently an associate professor of history at the University of Pittsburgh and the president of African-American Intellectual History Society. She is the author of the multi-prize winning book, Set the World on Fire, Black Nationalist Women and the Global Struggle for Freedom. She's also the co-editor of 3 books, To Turn the World Over, Black Women and Internationalism, New Perspectives on the Black Intellectual Tradition, and Charleston Syllabus, Readings on Race, Racism, and Racial Violence. Her next book, Until I Am Free, Fannie Lou Hamer's Vision of America, will be published by Beacon Press in 2021. Her writings have appeared in numerous outlets, including The Atlantic, The Guardian, The Washington Post, Time Magazine, and Salon Magazine. I want you all to help me welcome to the Bishop's Barbecue, and I think she probably brought her own potato salad with her, Dr. Keisha Blain. Would y'all say hello to Dr. Keisha Blain?
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here.
All right. My next guest is a comedian who first rose to fame in 2014, competing on Last Comic Standing. She has since become the writer and host of the duo television series and podcast Truth Serum with Aida Rodriguez. After studying English at Florida State University, she began a modeling career with the IMG agency. She starred as both host and actress on a number of television series, including Latino 101 and Illegal. And she is also a voice against injustice, and speaking her mind in terms of the issues of the day. And I want you to help me welcome Sister Aida Rodriguez.
Hi. I was like, it was Tamika's picture was up, and I was like, "Ooh, I'm that cute." So,
You're cute, but you know,
she's beautiful.
Absolutely. And my last, but definitely not least, guest is Miss Tamika Mallory, an activist, the founder of Mallory Consultant. She was the national co-chair for the Women's March, and now the co-founder of Until Freedom. She's an advocate for stronger gun restrictions, equal rights for women, health care, ethical police conduct. I just got through telling her she's been everywhere. You've seen her on Essence Festival, Vogue Magazine, BET, Red Table Talk, showing up on Beyonce records. You name it, her work is speaking for her all over America. From her position as the former executive director of the National Action Network to her instrumental role in creating New York City's crisis management system to her current role with Until Freedom, she has distinguished herself as an advocate for the voiceless, a fierce warrior for social justice, a humanitarian, and she is a force to be reckoned with. I want you all to welcome my sister Tamika Mallory.
Hey there, how y'all doing? All this good looking melanin out here.
Yes.
Melanin is popping, and you know, I got an all sister cast, which is good. I had all brothers at the beginning of this, and so it's good to have each and every one of you on here. So let's get right into the conversation. The passage of the 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution in 1865 made the defeat of the Southern Confederate Army by the Northern Union forces final and binding. It reads simply, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for a crime whereof a party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to its jurisdiction. The 13th Amendment memorialized the efforts of slaves, free persons of color, and other abolitionists to bring about freedom and equality. Now, while it was a blessing for free Black people, it was a curse for Southern legislators. The theater of the Civil War between Northern and Southern United States was the South. And as a result, Southern land was scorched and devastated. The infrastructure was damaged. And in short, Southern states had much work to do, but they no longer had a workforce that was legally compelled to do it. And so almost immediately, the Southern legislators seized upon the opportunity to use that exception in the 13th Amendment to their advantage. And so they developed their criminal codes to suit the South's economic condition. Their legislative manipulation of the 13th Amendment served to reinforce and perpetuate notions of Black criminality in the many incarnations of its criminal code. And throughout the 19th century, the state legally constructed Blackness to support claims of African-American criminality, ineptitude, and laziness. The state interpretations of the 13th Amendment wrote protections for African-Americans out of the law in a manner that preserved white supremacy, allowed the abuses of the convict leasing and labor system, and most significantly, the historical and legal changes that occurred in the 19th century shaped criminal sentencing law well into the 21st century. The end result has been disproportionate incarceration rates for African Americans and serious disparate treatment in the criminal injustice system. So my question to you sisters are, how important is it that Americans know the history of codifying racism into law and policy to understand the contemporary plight of African Americans today? Because what happens many times is folk don't understand the history of codifying racism into law, and they think this is really a thing of Black folks just being prone to criminality. And so let me start with you, Dr. Blaine, on that question.
Well, thanks again for having me. You know, I think when it comes to just talking about racism in the United States, I think people generally, they can understand the day-to-day kinds of experiences. So if we talk about someone using the N-word, people understand that kind of racism, right? You know, the individual acts of racism. What I think people don't understand is exactly what you're talking about, which is the structural racism, the way in which the laws, certainly historically in this country, and we could even go back further. I mean, if you're thinking about within the longer history of Black America, we can start with 1619, which in and of itself is not even sufficient when you recognize that Black people have been here even earlier. But if you even start with 1619 and you move forward, what you see is the way that the law has always worked against Black people in this country. And in the context of the 13th Amendment, I think many people don't even understand half of what you've just outlined. I think people will talk about the 13th Amendment as, you know, as focusing on how it abolished slavery in the United States. And that's pretty much where the conversation ends. I think few people have really thought carefully about the fact that the 13th Amendment, for all of its significance, did in fact leave a loophole. And as we know historically, whenever you have a loophole, white supremacists will exploit that loophole. They'll find ways. And the truth is, they didn't even need a loophole to find ways to keep Black people oppressed in society. And we certainly know the role of violence and intimidation and so on. So I think the history is absolutely important, and part of what I try to do as a historian, as a writer, is to shed light on this history, because I think when people understand the history, then it makes sense. When we say things like structural racism, it moves us away from just the individual acts that people generally understand and talk about, and then they're able to see how the law plays such a key role in this conversation.
Karen, how important is it? I mean, you all reach 30 million people on Sirius, and you get callers all of the time who want to weigh in on the issues of the day, but have no real basis of knowledge in the history of how we got here.
Listen, I mean, it's super important, as the professor just pointed out, Bishop Swan. And again, thank you for inviting all of these wonderful, dynamic people to this table to have this discussion. But I just don't have any faith that people care. So the knowledge is not the problem. It's out there. Google is your friend. People can get the knowledge. Michelle Alexander, Ava DuVernay, their documentaries, their videos, there are books that have read, definitely covered this topic. But I don't think people care because they like the position of privilege. They like to sit in that seat of white, I don't even call it supremacy anymore, because it's not. There's nothing supreme about it, but they like the disparity. They like that there's always going to be somebody at the bottom of the food chain. And as long as we have the appetite as a nation to have people be denigrated just because of the color of their skin, you can give all of the facts, data, history that you want. It's not going to change anything because they don't want to know. They don't care.
Tameka, you've been working in this area for quite some time with the National Action Network up until now. What's your take on the ignorance that's out there in terms of the and Karen said, the information is out there. People just don't want to know. Is that the case? They just don't want to know the real deal?
I think certainly, and I want to join Karen in thanking you for inviting all of us to be a part of this discussion today. I think that there's definitely an element of people who don't want to know. I think there are many people who are hiding from information because to understand and to really know the depth of where we've been and where we are today means that you will probably feel compelled to do something, and people don't necessarily want to be active. They would prefer to sort of sit back and complain and, you know, and feel sorry for themselves. But I think when you know, it begs the question, now, what are we going to do about it? I think it's a really, really dangerous thing when we live in a space where so many people are ignorant to, as the doctor was explaining, Dr. Blaine was explaining, when people are ignorant to the history. So when I post on my page, just like I did 2 or 3 nights ago, around the deaths, the murders of, now we know, maybe, I think it's been reported that there were about 8 kids killed over the 4th of July weekend. And I talked about how systemic racism and white supremacy is killing, or are killing, people in our communities. And folks went, and I'm talking about Black folks. I'm not talking, Bishop, about, you know, white people. There was some of them going crazy too, but to be honest, there were a lot of white people on my page who were explaining to other Black folks that no, actually, she's right. But there were many Black people who said, oh no, you need to lock these guys up, you know, lock these people up. You know, why are you blaming white people? And and that right there lets me know that folks don't understand what we are talking about. Mm-hmm. The first thing they went to was, when I say white supremacy and systemic racism, they start talking about people. Well, those white people, no white person was there, you know, that killed someone in our community. It wasn't police. They do not understand how systems that are in place create conditions that perpetuate violence in our communities. They have no understanding of that. They started to say that I was deflecting. People began to DM me saying that they were surprised, that they followed me. They thought I was smart, and they can't believe that I would come and try to make the violent incidents that happened over the weekend an issue about white people, when it was Ray Ray. And Ray Ray needs to go to jail. Pookie needs to be killed. They need to hang up. They need all this and that. And I would say, you know, and I was, you know, Karen, because, you know, sometimes when they be messing with us on socials and during your shows and all that, you get mad and you talk junk back. You know, we at the barbecue. So, you know, when you at the barbecue, sometimes it get loud and you get angry. But I realized the depth of ignorance. And so I took it down a notch and began to literally talk back and forth to people to try to help educate them. And then we did, my son, one of my partners, one of the co-founders, Until Freedom, we did a live last night where every time we would go too fast, I would say to him, hey, we need to slow it down and go backwards, because people really need this thing down to very bite-sized pieces that they can actually understand, because they just don't know. They've been taught that if we lock up, you know, if we call in Big Brother for every problem happening in our community, that perhaps is somehow going to solve the issues. Meanwhile, we've got millions of Ray Rays and Pookies locked up and violence is still happening. So obviously something else is wrong here. Yeah. It's another issue. And so I think it's so dangerous that we're in a place where we almost have to use our platforms to really educate our people, to help them understand that when you can give $50 billion to corporations in a stimulus package and only $1,200 to individuals, and not even all the individuals, many people still didn't get their stimulus check. If you had child support, you didn't get it. If you made a certain amount of money, which means nothing if you're not making it today.
If you owe the student loan.
If you owe student loans, if you have federal convictions of certain kinds, you couldn't get the money. So now you've got a bunch of people running around here. 40 million Americans are not working. Mama ain't got no job. The drug dealers ain't getting paid the way they used to on the street. The whole economy has been destroyed. And you want to know why folk is running around shooting outside? They starving.
But you know that mantra runs rampant, that whenever you begin to talk about systemic racism, state-sanctioned violence, they jump to the black on black crime thing. And what about this black on black crime? And they want you to think that racism is not a problem. Ida, you were at a forum and you kind of just went in on somebody about, our sons are out here dying on the streets, and you have the nerve to tell us that racism is not a problem. What do you say to the effect of white supremacy on what we do see in terms of crime that's out there?
So first and foremost, I'm thankful to be here as well. I'm thankful to be in this space as a Puerto Rican Black woman, because a lot of my brown brothers and sisters are anti-Black and don't claim their Blackness. So I'm just glad to be in these conversations, because I think it's important that, as the doctor said, we burn it all down, because that's where I am in this conversation. That woman said to me that if I was against racism, why didn't I go out and talk to Black women and tell them to stop having so many abortions? And the reason why I start there is because these are the talking points, right? Black on Black crime, abortion. The reality of it is that if you don't know your history, how the hell are you going to know where you're going? If we don't, they've taken geography out of schools. They're not teaching our children geography. I have a Black son and a Black daughter. Today we had to go to the DMV to make sure that he got his license because he lost it. My son lost his license. And I'm like, I can't have my son driving around without a license, because that could cost him his life. So when we sit down and talk about these fundamental tools and information that we don't have, because, quite honestly, I'm Puerto Rican. Our history goes back to colonization, just as in Puerto Rico, just as much as it goes back to slavery here in America. You're taught to be ashamed of your indigenous roots. You hear Mexicans saying that they're American. They don't want to say that they're Mexican. You hear Black people, the anti-Blackness runs rampant amongst us all, from Asia to Australia to Africa to here. And we start having these conversations about why people don't have the information. It's because information is power, right? So if you give people the information, then they start developing esteem. They start developing love for themselves and understanding their journey and what they've overcome and how empowered they are and how melanin is divine. And then now you got issues because people who have buying power now have information. They're physically, I say, superior. So now we got this issue of these people having all this information and power, and what are we going to have? The census just told y'all that by 2044, everybody's going to look like us on this panel. Their psyches are breaking down. There was a Black president in America. These people are having a meltdown. These white men in Congress, they're trying to stop abortions. They don't care about Black people and brown people having abortions. They don't want white women to have abortions because they're scared we're going to outnumber them. So when we talk about why they're afraid and why we don't have information, is because, a lot of it is rooted in white fear. And when I say white fear, I'm talking about the systemic white fear. I'm not talking about, the racists at the trailer park who have their KKK, hoods, and they're out there trying to kill and hang people and, doing it in hiding because they don't have the numbers, because we saw that in Stone Mountain, they didn't show up. But I mean, I get all over the place because we've been talking about this for a long time. This has been our journey. I was raised by a Puerto Rican woman who came here and was hosed and had dogs chasing her because she was Black. And she was a Black Puerto Rican woman telling us, you guys are just Black people who speak Spanish. So don't you ever let them tell you that you something else, because you're not. And when you think you in, they're going to remind you that you're not. So I had that information. But when I talk to some Latin people who think that they're white, or I talk to Black American people who say, I'm biracial, I'm not Black. Or when you hear, you look at these Mexicans and they Black, and you're like, what you mean you're not Black? You are Black. They don't have the information. And when you don't have information, you don't have self-esteem. And when you don't have self-esteem, it's easy to keep you down. Black and Black crime is a myth. MS-13 is a creation by the United States government. When they start talking to Latinos about your gangs, y'all created that. You went to these countries, you destabilized their governments, and now this is what you have. This is our ISIS. This is our ISIS. This is what you do to people of color. And what happens is that the chickens are coming home to roost. So it's very important for us to have information. That's why we need the doctors. And as a comedian, I have to slip it into my jokes. I haven't told a joke in months because I'm tired of seeing babies getting murdered. Tamir, you know what? My daughter had a meltdown in my house and saying, I went to college, I was a valedictorian of my class, and my life doesn't matter. And do you know what it is to have to speak into your child that their lives are worth something on a daily basis, in addition to all of the taxing that we have to deal with as people of color in this country? Come on, man, it's a job, and it's by design, and that's why I said we got to burn it down.
Let me talk about the moment that we're living in. The nation is alight with revolution. We've got uprisings happening in every major city in America. The murder of George Floyd at the knee of a police officer was the most recent spark, but of course we've had many others before that. Widespread police brutality and racialized poverty and inequity have come to the forefront in terms of conversations. Yet and still, there are those who are criticizing how we respond to this moment. Tameka, you had a video that went viral in terms of your response to it. So I want to pose this question to each of you. What do you say to those who have never raised their voices against the extrajudicial murder of Black people, systemic racism, mass incarceration, and all of the inequities that we see in society? But they've got so much to say about looting and destroying property. They use these qualifiers. Yes, the murder of George Floyd was a travesty, but that's no excuse to be out here looting and so on and so forth. What do y'all say to people who try to superimpose that conversation above the more important conversation that we should be having?
If I'm answering first, I say talk to the hand because the face don't understand. That's my answer. Yes. And that's why they mad at me right now. As I said, don't tell us about no damn looting. I don't even want to hear it. Okay, talk to the hand because the face don't understand. You know, of course we tell Black people and young people and our people and every people not to loot. We tell them that that vandalism and violence is not necessarily going to get us where it is that we're going as a people. And in this moment, all they want to do is use anything to shift the narrative off of the real focus in the movement and to the vandalism and all of that. Of course, we have these conversations. Like, don't talk to us like we stupid. We grown people. We've been doing this for a while. We know how to talk to our young people. But I want to know, first of all, have y'all been talking to white folks? Because when I was in Minneapolis, the liquor store, the white people were coming out of there with boxes of liquor. Okay, I'm not talking about a few bottles. I'm talking about they was in there in the stock area, bringing the liquor out, passing out bottles on the street. So I'm just wondering, did anybody talk to white folks and tell them that they don't need to be looting? Because
take it one further. Take it one further. They a white person burned down the police station in Minneapolis. A white woman started that fire in Atlanta at the place where the young man was shot
at Wendy's.
At Wendy's, and there were crates of pallets of bricks that were somehow delivered in the middle of the which we didn't deliver those pallets of bricks. So there's a lot of stuff going on that I think we need to talk about. But I'm going to quote Kimberly Jones. They broke the social construct.
Right.
Kimberly Jones said everything that needs to be said about how we should be viewing looting in America right now. But let's look at the white folks that started a lot of the fires.
Right. So that's the question I asked them is, have y'all talked to y'all own people about the looting? Because they need to stop it. But let's put that to the side. Okay. The real issue here, Bishop, is we've been trying to tell y'all that these folks are going to try to burn your country down if we don't deal with the issue of racism and violence against people of color. We done told y'all. Rosa Parks tried to tell y'all when she sat at the front of the bus. Dr. King been trying to tell y'all. Malcolm X was trying to tell y'all. And you just keep on coming all the way down. Reverend Jesse Jackson been trying to tell y'all. Reverend Sharpton been telling y'all. Bishop Swan been saying it. Tamika Mallory's been saying the Black Lives Matter. We keep on saying that at some point, this thing is going to pop. And so now we're in a place where we look, some of those people, I'm not going to, try to say that those folks that I just named agree, don't agree or whatever. But some of us are looking saying, what exactly did you expect? Essentially, the trauma that we're experiencing, and I don't know if y'all can hear that popping noise, but these fireworks, like where did, Karen, to your point, where did these young people get fireworks that's like the Macy's parade? Because that's what they have. Every night around this time, they start with fireworks that sound like bombs going off in Baghdad somewhere. It is absolutely crazy. So I know I jumped from one thing to the next, but it all is in the same framework that this is a response to the violence that people are witnessing in the palm of their hand with their cell phone. My son is 21 years old. He is of a generation that literally can pick up his phone at any time of the day and night and watch a Black man or woman being murdered, being beat, being choked, being disrespected, being jumped on, spit on, cursed out, fired. This is all day long. So,
and how long do people think that type of trauma can go on in the lives of people before they respond to it? Farrakhan said, "You taught us war. You taught us how to fight against one another. How long did you think that you could do this to us before we deal on you like you taught us to deal on everybody else?"
Right.
Well, you know what? I will just say this. When people say that to me, because they say it to me a lot, I say Boston Tea Party. We learned it from y'all. I say the Trail of Tears. We learned it from y'all. Not that looting is the language of the unheard. Looting is the language of the United States of America that was founded on stealing, raping, pillaging. How long do you think you're going to sterilize women in Puerto Rico, Native women, Black women in America, go out throughout the world executing, stealing, and taking things that don't belong from you? I'm so tired of people saying, you seem so angry. You damn right I'm angry. My kids can't leave the house right now. They worried about coronavirus, the police. I'm from Miami, Florida. My school burned down. My neighborhood burned down because they shot a Black man named McDuffie in the back who was on a motorcycle. How about Neville Johnson in Miami? You want to say some names? We've been saying these names since we were little. And our parents have been saying these names all the way back to Emmett Till and before. So when people come talking to me about looting and rioting, you know what? Maybe it's necessary to burn down the only thing you value in this country, which is that green dollar, because our lives don't matter. So we're going to hit you where it hurts in your pocket, because that's what you bleed is green. Our children matter to us. This is such a toxic capitalist country that our kids are out there. You see kids, and not just Black kids, not just brown kids, Asian kids, white kids, Indian kids, stealing sneakers and stuff. You know why? Because that's what they've been told in America. That's all you're worth here.
Right, that's your value.
Yeah. So then now that all of this is coming to fruition, all of the seeds that you have been sowing, these are your plants, these are your trees. Now you got to deal with them. Did you think you were like she said, like like we've all been saying, did you think you were going to do this to natives, infect them with STDs, take their land, relegate them to reservations, infect them with your alcoholism? Do you think you were going to go all throughout the Caribbean, infect Black people throughout the world to the place where they hate each other? The hatred towards Haitian Americans in Miami who kicked down the doors for our liberation. All of this stuff, this divide and conquer. And now that through our trauma, we are bonding because we learned it from you. Now you want to ask us why we're doing what you taught us how to do? I say, how dare you? How dare you?
It begs the question, though, would we see some of the overtures, which I don't think are nearly enough, being made, the corporations that are all of a sudden writing checks because they want to check a box and feel altruistic about helping in this moment. Would we see Commissioner Goodell all of a sudden a reversal and a about face in terms of the policy of the NFL? Would we see any of these things happening if this type of uprising had not happened? And maybe it takes burning it down to get their attention.
Well, and one of the things that I just wanted to also say too, I mean, the question that I always ask people is what kind of protest is actually acceptable in the United States? And if you ask that question and you look at the history, you'll realize that no kind of protest has ever been accepted in the United States. And what I mean by that, well, when Black people decided that they were going to hold hands and they were going to march and they were going to sing, "We will overcome," and they were going to employ nonviolent resistance, what happened? They encountered police violence. They encountered resistance. They encountered the same kind of habitual reaction that activists are getting today. So we now want to romanticize the civil rights movement. We now want to pretend like we've always loved Martin Luther King Jr., when in fact Martin Luther King Jr. was someone who was not fully accepted and received in his lifetime. And people treated him like he was doing the worst thing in the world, and he was doing it peacefully, right? And he was not necessarily calling, for people to burn anything down, but in the end, he met the same fate. He met the same fate as Malcolm X. So in the end, people like to play these games and say, oh, what's happening? Why are people in the street? Why are people looting? Why are people burning property, etc.? That's so problematic. Maybe they should just march and sing Kumbaya. Well, people have marched and sing Kumbaya and got hit in the face still. And as you brought up the NFL, let's not forget that someone like, Colin Kaepernick, what did he do? Did he burn anything down? All he did was he took a knee, and guess how that worked out for him? So let's not pretend like we so respect certain types of protests. In reality, we don't want any kind of protest. We don't want people challenging white supremacy. We want people to sit by, quiet, and be okay with it and just say, well, this is what it is, and move on. The minute people speak up, it's a problem. The minute people get into the streets, it's a problem. People topple some Confederate monument, it's a problem. People do anything, it's a problem. You simply breathe, it's a problem. So I just think we have to be honest with the fact that we don't really have any kind of notion of acceptable protest in this country.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Do you think we'd be in this moment if George Floyd were shot instead of us watching him literally die 8 minutes and 46 seconds? Do you think if he were shot in the back like a Walter Scott, if we would be in this moment right now having this discussion? Do you think it would have erupted across the globe, because it was across the globe that knee on that neck with that man's face, with his hands in his pockets, with 8 minutes and 46 seconds, did something? It broke something that can never be put back together. But if he was shot, would it be business as usual? Because we're used to seeing Black people shot.
Yeah, I think that's an important question. And I think to your point, we've become desensitized to police shootings, that it happens so often, so much, that it's just another case of police shooting an unarmed Black person. I think the combination of COVID, we're dealing with two pandemics at the same time, the pandemic of white supremacy, the pandemic of coronavirus. We got to deal with COVID and cops, pandemic and police. And the combination of people being in a place where they're sheltering in place, where the country was still basically on lockdown, and people are sitting in front of their television and they see this image of this police officer kneeling on this man's neck for nearly 9 minutes. Just the reprehensible sight of this inhumane action. I think that set America off in a way that a regular police shooting would not have set it off. So I think, to your point, we may not be in this space had he not died the way that he died.
I would ask to add to Karen's question, would people be more outraged if Breonna Taylor had been shot on camera?
Yes, it's a good question.
Yes, it's so.
Do we know? Do we need to see the murder? We can feel it.
You know.
Yeah. You know, and I don't know. That's something to flesh out. We never saw Trayvon's murder.
We
heard the audio tape. We heard the call to the police department. I do think there's something about seeing or hearing it happen that adds another level to it. Although we should be outraged at any unjust murder that's happening out there.
We enjoy a privilege, though, because a lot of us don't endure the violence that people who are in those marginalized communities that I come from, because I come from the gutter, and you get used to seeing people get killed, and you get and the cops beating you up and shooting without consequences becomes normalized. And so white people got a chance to see it, and they were like, oh, like Scooby-Doo, that ghost is real. We got a chance to see it. Because they've been denying it for so long, and you could not deny that. You could not deny those 8 minutes and 46 seconds, right? Because it's traumatic. We are all still dealing with the aftershock of that earthquake. And so now they get to see it, and they get to say, this is not okay. Because our voice has not been enough, doctor.
And I would also just quickly add to, I think just the 3 words, I can't breathe. I think that really resonated with people because, of course, immediately they thought about Eric Garner. And perhaps what it did was get people to realize that we keep finding ourselves in the same place over and over again, right? And so right after Eric Garner's death, we had national uprisings, we had conversations about how we might make changes to American policing, and it certainly left a meaningful impact. But then to sort of watch it unfold again, this time, right, a different space, a different city, but those 3 words coming out of the mouth of George Floyd, I think people just recognize that, wait a minute, whatever we think we did in the last few years concerning police violence in this country, it's not working. And so the system has to be disrupted. I mean, it has to be uprooted. And we keep talking, and I know everyone has their perspective about this, but we keep talking reform. We want to tweak this, we want to tweak that. Well, the entire thing is corrupt. And if it, what are you going to do? You can tweak 100 things, but it's still at its core, it needs to be overturned. And so my sense is that those 3 words certainly triggered something in a lot of people. And as you noted, as many of you noted, in the context of COVID-19 and everything else, enough was enough.
So how do we dismantle this thing? See, we've got racism in sports. White owners didn't want black athletes protesting injustice. We've got racism in medicine, experimentation on black folks, doctors who think black folks can take pain better than white folks, so they don't prescribe them pain medication. We got racism in entertainment and television. White folks losing their mind over Ariel being cast as a black person, a mermaid. Nick Fury being played by Samuel L. Jackson. They lost their minds about a black Santa at the Mall of America. And please don't say Jesus was black. Racism Racism's been codified into law, policy, sports, medicine, entertainment, you name it. James Baldwin said to be black and conscious in America is to be in a constant state of rage. I hold the position that we have a right to be angry. We got a right to be infuriated. We have a right to be incredulous, to be mad about the conditions that exist in our nation. I'm part Malcolm, I'm part Martin. The Malcolm part of me is, you know what? Obey the law, respect everybody. But if somebody puts his hands on you, send them to the cemetery. Yeah. And so the question I have for you is, why do black people feel the need to call for calm and compassion and forgiveness when white people in America don't deserve any of the above? Why are we always the ones that have to be calm and compassionate and forgiving and all of that kind of stuff when white folks can never forget and can do preemptive strikes and all of that and be heroes and patriotic, but we've always got to be docile and passive?
You talking to the people in this room?
Yeah. I'm asking you all the question about what's going on out there.
No, go ahead.
I think part of the answer has to do with what can best be described as respectability politics, right? And I'm thinking about this certainly in a historical lens, where so many times in our nation's history, what Black communities have done, what Black people have done, is rather than focus on the way that white people are really working to keep them in a subordinate position, what people often do is they internalize, right, what's happening. They begin to look inward and they decide, well, the problem isn't all these external factors. Maybe the problem is us, right? And so even as we talk about police violence and brutality, we're still falling into the trap of telling people, well, okay, yes, we recognize that it was terrible what happened to Sandra Bland, but there are people who would say, but what if she didn't speak to the officer that way? Right. What if she was polite? What if she said, yes, sir? Maybe she wouldn't be gone, right? Because if she had done certain things, the outcome would be different. Now, we know that's a lie. We know that people still lose their lives, whether they say yes, sir, or they don't say yes, sir. We know that you could dress the part, you could have a PhD, you can go to Harvard. Must I remind you? I mean, someone like Skip Gates still found himself in an unfortunate position with the police because it doesn't really matter. The problem is, right, it's all about Blackness. It's not about whether you have a PhD or you have a fancy outfit or whatever, or you do it right. And so, this is what I think it comes back to. All these things happen, and then Black folks are like, well, you know what, we're going to quickly forgive. We're going to quickly release a statement, and we're going to, hold hands, and we're going to hug the police officer who killed our loved one. All of these are nice gestures, but what you're doing is sort of looking inward and saying, look, maybe we're part of the problem, as opposed to saying, no, this needs to be uprooted. This is a problem, that has really nothing to do with the people who are being victimized here. So I think respectability politics in its broadest sense has really just messed up the way we respond, to a lot of these circumstances.
I think Ida actually hit it. We've been indoctrinated into self-hatred for 400 years. It's been beat into us to the point that Christian Cooper doesn't want to participate in the prosecution of Amy Cooper, who called the police and could have cost him his life. She called the police and feigned that this Black man was threatening her in New York City. Yeah. Sean Bell, Amadou Diallo, Patrick Dorsman. She could have cost him his life, and he doesn't want to. He says she's been through enough. We are damaged. That's why I jokingly, but I mean this. The people in this room kind of understand that, because we, all of us have lived a life, including you, Bishop, where we understand that it doesn't matter how we show up. We're still Black. We're still an N-word to so many people and so many institutions. And so, as far as I'm concerned, I don't even try. I don't even try. But some people still try. I don't even try, because I already know so we just got to be free every day and wake up every day and know that it doesn't matter. So we might as well go out as our full selves instead of, getting off of a bench, a judge who got to the pinnacle, got off of her bench to go hug somebody that took the life of a man that was in his home.
My God.
Yeah, no.
You know, every day I get folks who say, "You're supposed to be a bishop. You're supposed to be a pastor, and you're talking to people like that." You know, I am the Nat Turner kind of preacher. You know, I'm the Denmark Vesey kind of preacher. I'm not this kumbaya, you know, brush over your bigotry. When you come from me with that nonsense, you know, I'm going to respond the best way that I know how, and it's about the preservation of my people, my family, and all of that kind of stuff. And I think to a great extent, religion has corrupted us so bad to the point where we feel like in order to be close to God, you know, we've got to be docile, passive, and allow folk to run all over us. And I'm just, that's just not the kind of religion I'm into. That ain't the Jesus that I worship.
And I think that so many people are. I watched on TV when the riots were happening, and I saw different people that we know very well, but we won't name them tonight, who, you know, were being brought on. You know, they were on different shows commentating. Some of them, it's their job, others, you know, and they would ask them, "What do you think about the looting and the rioting?" And I would sit there and go, please, just please, like, don't let them loop you in to this discussion and then turn your back on some of these young people who are out here more courageous than you've ever been in your life. Please don't let them.
Right.
Yeah.
And not every time. I'll take that back.
Hi, my name is Dali.
Just a moment, caller. Go ahead. Finish your thought, Tameka.
I'm sorry. There were some moments when I was pleasantly surprised, but there were other moments where you could see the buck dancing going on. And I watched this one interview, and I can't tell y'all who was doing the interview.
Come on, Tameka, tell her.
I can't tell. If I tell who was doing it, then y'all gonna know who it was. But the person was interviewing, the white man was interviewing the black man. And the white man was like, because I know that you don't agree with that, because I know that you're going to denounce this behavior because that's not who you are. And I know you as a leader, you've never been for violence and you do it this way and da-da-da-da-da. And I was sitting there saying to myself, just say one time in your life, hold up, hold on, let me break this down for you. Let me see. And instead, they went right along with a white man that was forcing him to say what they want him to say, what their narrative was, instead of using it as an opportunity to describe the pain and the rage and be able to put a face on it and make it real, and then still be able to say, of course we don't condone it. We out here, we're working with these young people to figure out how to help organize them, give them hope. It never came up. They also never said, well, there are detractors out there. There are infiltrators in our movement. None of that. Just went along with what the white man says. I can't take it. And I know I'm always in trouble.
We all stay in trouble. Good evening, caller. Good evening, caller. Caller, you're on the air.
Good evening, Bishop. I'm saying hello to everybody on the panel. I like the subject you guys going through right now. My name is Dali, and I'm calling from Florida. And I'm watching the program live. And I really appreciate everybody on the panel. Hey, ladies. Hi. Everybody is beautiful.
All right. You have a question?
It was just a suggestion about what you guys been talking about. The thing with, even in that COVID situation right now, all that money going on, I was watching the news. I was so mad. Right now I'm home. because I test positive. I'm a nursing field, so I test positive, and then I'm home. I cannot even go to work, get paid nothing, and then I'm looking at those people. We are most of us under health situation, under healthcare. Most of us are like black, everything, and then now we don't got nothing. No money, nothing. We can't even get paid. That PPE, you see all those people getting money, and then us, we don't get paid. My thing is, I hope this thing going on, the thing who's going on right now, the revolution we try to provide, I hope we keep it up. We need to speak up. They think all black people is stupid and dumb, but it's not true. We will educate, we smart everything. We are educated. We are smart.
All right. I want to thank you. I want to thank you for your call. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for everything that you had to say. Tameka, there's a lot of folk out there who were buck dancing around this whole issue and felt that they had to qualify, without explaining, they were infiltrators and everything else. And then the bottom line was, like you said, y'all are the looters. I mean, you got the hell of a nerve to talk to us about looting when this whole nation, all you got to do is walk out your front door and look on the ground and you see looted land. So to talk to us about looting and violence and this and that is crazy. And this whole notion that somehow we've got to be forgiving white folks for murdering us is insane. When is the last time you saw the media stick a camera and a microphone in front of a white family whose loved one had been killed by someone and ask them, did they forgive their murderer?
You know what I wanted to say quickly, though, is that it is preposterous. I can't find the word anymore. That it is radical for people of color to demand humanity, right? So I have to look at it from a spiritual perspective. My grandmother passed away in 2013, but I take her with me everywhere I go. And she's the one that told me that melanin was divine. And she used to always tell me, the thing about white people is that they know that black people are not evil. They know about our divinity, which is why they gave us their children in slavery. They give us their children now. She's like, if you go down the street at noon, you're going to see a bunch of black and brown nannies with white babies and strollers because they know that we're not innately evil because we're divine. And no matter how much they try to get rid of us, we still here. And they're not going to get rid of us because we're divine. So when we sit here and have these conversations, I don't do any more all lives matter analogies. I'm not explaining that to anybody. I don't have to qualify why we matter, why my son and my daughter should be able to roam the streets of America freely without feeling endangered by law enforcement. I'm a lot more Malcolm than I was Martin. And Martin is a lot more Malcolm than we would know if we knew Malcolm really wholly, because what we know about Malcolm is what white history is always trying to tell us, that he was passive. But, like when I saw Tamika's speech that went viral, I was like, well, God, damn, somebody is finally using the microphone and the platform to speak to my soul, because I am not apologizing for demanding to be treated. When my ancestors built the world, not the America, the world, you know what I'm saying? And it's exhausting to have these conversations when people say to me, people think that I'm white adjacent because the way I look, and they think they can say all kinds of things to me, and then they got a running joke with me. Well, she got some Angela Davis and Osada in her. Who do you think we are? Like, why do we have to? Who do we owe grace to with the treatment that we've received in this country and all over the world? Everywhere you go to Mexico and you see Mexican people waiting on white people in their own country. So we're done with that. And so now
we're done with that.
I'm not doing that anymore. We're done with that. The reason why this is happening is because Malcolm told y'all the chickens are coming home to roost. You cannot keep doing people like that. You send your soldiers overseas. They murder people in the Middle East. They do all kinds of atrocities, and then you're like, "Where's ISIS?" Those are the children of those people that you murdered. And I'm not condoning violence, but I'm not going to walk away from it when you have no hesitation to inflict it upon me.
But violence begets violence.
Yes, and sometimes it begets results.
Caller, you're on the air.
I'm so mad.
Caller going once.
I'm so mad.
Caller going twice.
Karen.
While he works on getting the call, I'm getting off of here with y'all. Y'all too radical. I told you they ready for me. Okay, and I'm getting off of here with y'all. Y'all too radical.
Now listen to who's talking.
Isn't it funny that it's radical to demand justice for your people? That's considered radical.
Literally radical.
Well, you know, the history of so-called radical women fighting for justice is long. And Dr. Blaine, you wrote a book that really dealt with that. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I wrote a book called "Set the World on Fire," and the title, of course, is pretty accurate and connected to a lot of what we're talking about. But it centers on Black nationalist women, and these were women who simply did not, they didn't fall within the mainstream narratives. Okay, so these are not people. When people refer to them as civil rights activists, I chuckle because these women would not have called themselves civil rights activists. They resisted the idea of even integrating with white folks. They believed in racial separatism. They wanted to establish an autonomous Black nation state. Their attitude was, white folks do not want us. We don't want them either. We are just going to do for ourselves, build for ourselves, and handle our business. And they were very radical. So not surprisingly, some of them were arrested. Some of them were imprisoned because of their radicalism. But I think at the end of the day, what they were trying to get people to do is to understand that the United States would never actually be a place. So now we can keep fighting, and we have to keep fighting. I'm not suggesting that we give up and put our hands in the air. But what they wanted to convey is that the United States would never be a place where Black people could truly be treated on equal par with other people, that Black people would always be treated as second-class citizens. Why? Because of the history, the very long history of slavery. And here's where I tell people that history continues to shape every facet, every aspect of Black life to this very day, which is why you can't just say, oh, what happened in the past, we should move on. We can't move on because it's still with us today.
Good evening, caller. You're on the air. All right. Someone can jump in. I guess my callers don't want to wait until we get them on the air. But your next book is on Fannie Lou Hamer, who was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And of course, we all know about Fannie Lou Hamer. What do you all say in terms of what we see with Black women who are basically making determinations on what happens in these elections in the United States? We can go back to the election in Alabama, keeping Roy Moore out of office and basically taking Joe Biden's campaign off of life support and giving him a shot at the presidency. And the fact that they basically are probably the most loyal constituency of the Democrat Party. And yet and still, when you talk about a Black woman as vice president, there are folks who are saying, well, it doesn't have to be a Black woman. Just as long as it's a woman and as long as it's somebody who has this ideology, so on and so forth. What do you feel as Black women when you basically save this party, are really saving the nation, but then they want to kick you to the curb and say, well, maybe we might choose a Black woman, but maybe not.
Oh, now we all just stop to look at you. You know what? We so tired. We is tired. We is frustrated. We is angry. And we just tired. It's for real. Like, that's why everybody just sat here and looked like.
I said on the air that Joe Biden doesn't pick a black woman or he's going to lose. I really feel that way, you know, and I contemplate whether or not we're going to show up if he doesn't, because I think this might be one time. And personally, I'm voting. I said, you know, if he comes in a wheelchair sucking out of a straw oxygen tank, I'm voting for him, because Trump, I don't know if we could survive another 4 years, but, you know, maybe this is what the country deserves, you know. And if you're going to be disrespectful, the one constituency that has made sure that you have won in every election, in spite of never getting anything in return.
Right.
Woe to you, you know. And I think a lot of people are going to sit home if it's not a black woman. I feel very, you know, strongly.
You said, I heard you exhale. He needs. I feel like I don't know if anyone here can name an administration that has changed the conditions of Black people in America. Like, can you think about one administration that was like, oh, that was a good one for us? I mean, if you can, please let me know. So when I think about the political parties and how they weaponize them, and Black and brown people are tokenized, right? So we are pawns in the game. And you talk about Latinos who are immigrants, where people don't realize that Latinos are immigrants and can be Black and can be, I mean, there's intersectionality. You know, at that Mexican border, they were holding Africans and Haitians that nobody advocated for when we were talking about immigration, because anti-Blackness runs rampant everywhere globally because they know the truth. But when we talk about these political parties, I want to hear Joe Biden atone. I'd like to know an apology. I would like to hear him say, I participated in a lot of stuff that was harmful and damaging to Black people in America and brown people alike, because I think it is important for us to regain trust in anybody at this point, because this right here is looking bleak, right? Mm-hmm. And then the other thing is, like, the reality of what Black women have done in this country historically. You know, I come from immigrants that come from other parts of the world where Black women did that there too. But the truth is that the specific situation of the Black American, which we cannot deny, is a different situation, because the injustices have gone on so much and so long for so hard. And we, you know, Puerto Ricans have a flag, they got music, they still got African folklore in Puerto Rico, where we still practice religion that came from Africa, and where in America they extinguished all of that stuff. Black women should leave. I don't know if there was a mass exodus of Black women in America, the country would.
Did you say they should leave?
There would be a mass exodus. I'm being facetious, but if Black women decided to leave this country, it would fall apart. America cannot function without people of color. This is the reason why Jeff Bezos can say he's a trillionaire. They cannot. They have built wealth. And let me just say this, and I'm gonna shut up for the rest of the show because I am angry. This whole ideology about wealth in America, about these people working so hard for this wealth and becoming billionaires, with the erasure of all of the work that Black slaves did in this country for free. Do you know what it is to get a company where you got 400 years of free labor? You better be a billionaire. You should be a zillionaire with all of that free work that you got. And then you add the immigrants that come in here and they mine crops for $3 because they don't want to get deported. The grave injustices that have taken place in this country is brutal, and we got to always talk about it.
The looting.
I lose jobs because of this. People don't want, they're like, what kind of comedian are you? I'm the same kind of comedian George Carlin was, bitch. When George Carlin was talking about social and political issues, y'all didn't have a problem with him because he's a white man. How dare you? I swear to goodness, Black women have raised babies, put their breasts in your white baby's mouth to feed them, and have been feeding them ever since. And you can't say Breonna Taylor's name. I'm done.
On that note, Tameka, you're headed next week to Kentucky to kind of turn up the heat on the Breonna Taylor investigation. No one has been arrested in that particular case as of yet. So tell us what's going on with that.
So it's been 115 days, and Breonna Taylor's murderers are still free. The one man that they actually arrested, that they fired, the cop that they fired, when they put his picture on the internet to show that he was one of the people involved in the shooting, women started coming forward saying, "Oh, that's the man that sexually assaulted me." The women, I laugh because otherwise I would be screaming and crying tonight, that they already knew that this officer had baggage, that these women claimed that he sexually assaulted them, that a man who lives in the city who had been dating his ex-girlfriend, I don't know if y'all heard about this, but he had been dating the officer's ex-girlfriend. And because of that, the officer had him arrested on charges that were eventually thrown out when it was found to be bogus charges. His family members turned their backs, the community, everybody, because the officer caused purity hell for this man in his life because he was dating his girlfriend. He was one of those cynical and evil white men who is like a child that has been allowed to do whatever he wants. He has such privilege that he could take it into his own hand, sexually assault people, shoot into a woman's home without having any understanding of who was on the other side of the door, bullets flying into a 5-month-old baby's apartment, where the baby was inside the house sleeping. I don't even, and then after the shooting, he disappeared for 2 hours and no one was even able to find him. So they fired him. Oh, that's nice. From my perspective and from Until Freedom's perspective, that's your human resources business. That's human resource. We get it. From a human resources perspective, he's bad for business. You fired him. We're talking about the human rights part and why he has not been arrested and charged for the murder of Breonna Taylor. Why is the officer who lied on a warrant application and said that the Postal Service reported suspicious packages going to Breonna Taylor's house, and yet when the Postal Service was asked about it, they said they never ever reported such, and in fact there was no suspicion of packages, illegal packages going to her home. He lied on the application, as they often do, to get their warrants, to be able to arrest people. And yet and still, he's on administrative duty. He should be in jail.
Yeah.
And everyone else who was there protecting and coddling, and as you said, codification of racism in America. Yeah, the rules are set up to uphold these guys. They might go back on the job. They may even be able to cross town and go to another city and get a job in another police department and get promoted. Okay.
Well, oftentimes what they do is they actually protect these officers within the departments. Many times I've known of cases where they refuse to reveal the identity of an officer, or where they've allowed an officer to resign, so being fired didn't go on their record, so that they can then transfer and go to another police department and do the same thing somewhere else across the country, or even in the same region. I had a guy who sent me some racist stuff from Utah, and they let him resign, and then he winds up as a cop somewhere else in Utah. So they keep recycling the same derelicts over and over again.
But and in this situation, to your point, the police chief was already talking about retiring. And so then they came out with this big announcement that he resigned, that he had to step down. No, he was already getting ready to retire, and they moved his retirement date up to try to see. And that's what they do. They're trickling little things to see whether the movement will die down. First, the police chief resigns. Then they put some people on administrative duty. Then they fire an officer. They're trying to see whether or not they can have the appearance of justice. But unfortunately, they pissed the girl off from the projects in Harlem. And
Who's that?
I'm from the projects in Harlem. And so I do hood math.
That's right.
Okay. And hood math says that firing some people and putting some folks on administrative leave does not equal murder. It doesn't go together. Because I've seen too many pookies that did less than that have to go to jail for years and years and years and years. Some of them been there since I was a kid. And so in hood math, okay, you know I'm not the smartest person in this conversation. The doctor is here, all y'all people here. But in hood math, murder should equal some time in prison. And that is why we're going back on Tuesday, because what we realized, Daniel Cameron, the black man who is the attorney general, who's a Trump lover, he got his Make America Great hat on. He's cousins, play cousins with Ben Carson and Candace Owens. That's their people. They are part of that whole family of ignorant Negroes, cooning Negroes. And
can you say that?
What? I mean, we're talking about, no, seriously?
No, go ahead.
Seriously? We're talking about folk murdered. This girl was murdered in her home. Yeah. So I know that they, that you ain't supposed to say it like this. I'm with Aida. I understand that we're supposed to have respectability politics and we're supposed to do it the right way. But I am the angriest black woman that I can find. Because I know, not more angry than you, Karen, because I know.
I think she's angrier. Angry.
Because I know for sure that if it can happen to Breonna Taylor in Kentucky, it can happen to a Tatiana Jefferson in Texas. It can damn sure enough happen to Tamika Mallory in New York City. And so I think that Breonna Taylor's situation is the hill that we have to be prepared to die on. If we don't stand up for her, a young black woman who wasn't doing anything wrong, she wasn't being rude, she wasn't like Sandra Bland being, as they say, disrespectful.
And even if she was.
But I'm just saying, I'm going with their talking points. None of that happened. There was no drugs in her home. Her boyfriend, Kenny Walker, didn't have a record. He had the right to fire his licensed firearm. They did everything right. They were in their home sleeping. So if we allow black women to be killed in this way, then we might as well hang it up. That's
absolutely. Who's angrier, Karen, you or Tamika?
You're on mute, Karen.
No, it's Aida. I said it's Aida. I'm not angry at all. I'm very,
You said Aida is angrier?
Aida's angrier than Tamika. But, we're doing a anger meter. I think she's about a 9.5. And,
you sound like the white boys who always on my Twitter feed telling me I'm angry, why I'm so angry. Like, I am.
Anger gets ish done. If we're being honest, as Mr. Nancy said on American Gods, and anger is the fuel, and be angry, Pastor, but once and not. We're supposed to be angry. Anger is the thing that makes it happen. So I'm okay with the anger.
You talking about Breonna Taylor was an essential worker, right? We're just now starting to value the people who maintain this country, right? We've learned the value of the black and brown people who are dying because of this COVID-19 reality that's upon us. And now we're calling people who show up for work every day and get underpaid essential workers. So this woman in her sleep, mind you, that same weekend, they killed a black Puerto Rican lady in her sleep as well, who was a correctional officer in upstate New York, Sandy Guidalo. So two women Black women, one Latin, one American, both killed by law enforcement in their sleep, who were essential workers. So if now they're killing essential workers, law-abiding citizens, we are doomed.
Well, they're killing Black folk no matter what kind of workers they are. That's the America that we live in. You're the last caller. You're on the air. Go right ahead.
Is it me?
Yeah, you're on the air.
I just want to tell you, thank you, Bishop, for putting this on. This is a wonderful forum. I love Tameka, Karen, Keisha, Aida. You guys are doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Appreciate you. So let me go around and get our final remarks from the panelists. Tell me what you're up to, what's happening with you, and what would your final remarks be to the audience in this moment? What should we be doing? Your colleague, Karen, Joe Madison, always says the difference between a moment and a movement is sacrifice. And Tameka, you're on the front lines out there sacrificing, and as many of you are. What do people need to do in this moment to move the needle forward toward justice in our nation? And I'll start with the angriest Black woman, with Aida.
So first of all, I want to use this opportunity to speak to my people, specifically Latinos, who don't think that police brutality is a Latin issue. And, when we talk about the erasure of Black Latinos within our own spectrum is one, disrespectful, and two, but if you think they're not killing us as well, just look around. Andres Guardado, 18 years old. We just found out. I talked to Ben Crump about it. Shot in the back 5 times on his knees by police officers who were not in uniform, and they killed him. They shot him in the back. 18 years old, 2 jobs, was in school. Then there was a young man in Vallejo. I just want to talk to. I'm all about Black and brown solidarity. I don't believe in co-opting movements, but I think that the 2 most powerful groups of people in America that have built it and maintained it are being treated the worst, because when you hear about anti-Blackness, they always put it on Latinos, but anti-Blackness, first of all, is it's a white supremacist value that is a global issue, and it exists on every continent, including this one. Spike Lee did a whole movie about Black people being anti-Black called School Days. So I just want to talk to my people and say, it is time. You cannot demand people to be upset about babies in cages if you don't care about Tamir Rice. We have to find solidarity and unity in this moment. And we have to be able to say the word Black and stop whispering it like it's a bad word. We as immigrants come here and we do a lot of work, and they treat us like they're doing us a favor. And I want to invite you to do like Dr. Keisha said, burn it all down.
Wow. Burn it down. Dr. Blaine?
Well, one of the things that I would just emphasize in this moment is just remind people that mass protest work. I think sometimes it's easy to forget that. But what's connected also is the fact that even as we know mass protests work, it's important to recognize that it takes time. I was just reflecting, for example, on the Montgomery bus boycott from 1955. It took an entire year. And we've been at this for the last few weeks. I mean, and certainly we've really been at it, if you think about it, in the longest term for decades. But I'm speaking specifically about the uprisings, right? That followed the killing of George Floyd. And I think my sense is that some people are perhaps getting weary, and that's understandable. And I just think we have to stay focused. We can talk about Confederate monuments. We can talk about Confederate statutes. We can appreciate, symbols. We can appreciate all of these lovely gestures, but we have to really get back to basics, and we have to recognize that we have to keep demanding changes, and it will take a while. It could take weeks, it could take months, it could take years, but we have to be in this for the long haul. So I would just encourage people to be persistent and know that change will come.
Tameka.
I'm gonna be really, really short because I think the ladies have already said all that I could ever say. But I would just encourage people with this one thing. Our fight is righteous. Don't let people tell you that, maybe we shouldn't be protesting because rioting. What about the black on black crime? What about, all these different things? And all white people are not bad. The language they're using, the signs aren't right. They will do all that they can to try to get you off of your game. Our movement is righteous. Our fight is righteous. You have the right to be in the police brutality movement while other people are in the gun violence movement. You do not have to work in both spaces if that is not what you have the capacity to do. Do not let these people try to tell us who we are, how we should be organizing, and give us stipulations on fighting for Black life. It is not for them to dictate everything. They can't tell us everything. They already are in our communities, destroying and destabilizing us. They want to destabilize our movement. And so when you're feeling that feeling like, I'm not sure if we should keep going, I don't know how we should show up, just stand in the gap and all of the rest of the details will come together. But be present, be active, and understand that your cause is righteous. It is righteous no matter what happens. It is righteous.
All right. And the questionably most angry Black woman. But I saved my birthday twin for last. Karen Hunter.
Listen, first of all, again, Bishop, thank you for convening this panel tonight. It's an honor to sit here among these women, very, very powerful women. I want to piggyback or grab the baton from each one of them and just remind everyone, especially folks with melanin, that we are enough. Stop centering whiteness through every decision that you make. Everything that we do in the workplace, or we're always looking at it, is it okay to them? And it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. As Aida said, we built this world. And they can't make it without us. So the power's in our hands, from our dollars to our mindset to everything that we do. We already have won. So let's keep focused, because I see a lot of distractions. I know the NBA is coming back. Please, y'all, don't let sports take you away from the mission. At the end of the day, there are things we can get. And this is a particular time in history. None of us on this right now has ever seen a time like this in our lifetimes, where we can actually get some things done. So let's focus on getting those things done, not the Black Lives Matter painting on the street, not singing Lift Every Voice and sing at a sporting event, but some actual things, real police reform, real reparations. All of those things are on the table right now. As people are writing these checks, let's get them and follow the money. Don't get weary. We can do this. I feel very optimistic. I'm not actually angry at all. And where's my hot dog, Bishop? You promised that.
I told you there was steak on the grill. I'm gonna do the hot dogs. And we got chicken. All of that. Listen, I want to thank every one of you so much for coming on with me this evening, taking time out of your busy schedules, and I want to appreciate everything each of you do from day to day, to sound the alarm, to raise awareness. And to be the consummate professionals that you are in your various spheres of influence. You make us all proud, and I appreciate every single one of you. Listen, for everybody else out there, next week we're going to do it again. This was going to be the last one, but next week we've got the Reverend E. Dewey Smith. We've got Bishop William Barber. We've got Reverend Willie Francois. Same time, same batch station, Wednesday at 9 p.m. And until the next time I talk to you and you talk to me, always remember, God loves you, and so do I. Peace and blessings, everybody. See ya.
Walter Scott, say his name. Walter Scott, say his name. Walter Scott, say his name. Walter Scott, won't you say his name? Jermaine Reed, say his name. Jermaine Reed, say his name. Jermaine Reed, say his name. Jermaine Reed, won't you say his name? Philip White, say his name. Philip White, say his name. Philip White, say his name. Philip White, won't you say his name? Say his name. 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 Eric Garner, 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 won't you say his name? Trayvon Martin, say his name. Trayvon Martin, say his name. Trayvon Martin, say his name. Trayvon Martin, won't you say his name? Sean Bell, say his name. Sean Bell, say his name.